Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will be looking at the situation in Gaza, where Israel's aggression on Gaza has killed more than 41,000 innocent people. Of course, aid organizations are saying that Israel is blocking more than 83% of food aid from reaching the Gaza. And of course, when we look at the humanitarian workers who are working within this conflict zone, the deaths are of course growing, and the death toll is growing at an alarming rate. When we look at the protests that are happening all across the world regarding Gaza conflict, of course the pressure is mounting each day on Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, but he remains unmoved, and hence the conflict is growing each day. As the conflict has entered and the war has entered into its 11th month, of course the call for peace is are now growing each day, and there is need for international community to work more towards it. In today's program, we will be looking at the ongoing situation in Gaza and what needs to be done by the international community, of course, to stop this conflict from spilling over within the larger region. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Khalid, Taimur, Akram. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Sheharyar. Welcome to the program, and we are joined by Mr. Nadir Turk. Welcome to the program. Mr. Turk, let me start with you. When we look at the death toll, which is rising each day, and now it stands at more than 41,000 innocent lives lost. Can you tell us about the ongoing situation in Gaza as of today?
The ongoing situation is the same as it is since almost 20 years right now. We speak about what's happening in Gaza. The main issue is actually in the north of Gaza, not only in the south. North of Gaza, we still have 350,000 of Gaza people still living there, out of more than 1.5 million was living there before. They're starving to death. Israel is not allowed anything to reach to them. No food, no medical equipment, no medicine, no water. So because the plan of Israel right now, it has become very clear, as I mentioned before, that they want like to transfer north of Gaza completely to south of Gaza, to make it as first stage as national park. Later on it's become Israeli settlements. This is the Israelis' plan. This is going to be step by step to transfer all Gaza people out of Gaza, to replace them with Israeli settlers. This is what is happening until now. But with the support of our brothers in Egypt, this plan until now not going on in the progress on the ground, because the Egyptians refuse to shift Palestinians out of Gaza to Sinai desert. And His Excellency President of Egypt, early of this war, in the 18th of October, he mentioned clearly in conference with the President of Germany that if the Israelis like to transfer Gaza people to complete their military actions in Gaza, they are not allowed to transfer them to Sinai, but they can transfer them to Naqab, as it is part of the Israeli territories. So why they shift them to Sinai? Sinai, it is red line, no one can cross it. The only solution is they like to transfer them to Naqab.
Right.
But what we are request from the international situation, and tomorrow going to be the General Assembly meeting in New York, that first to end this war, end Israel's crimes, facilitate the establishing of Palestinian state, and facilitate the right of return for Palestinian people to their own territories.
Right. We will be talking in depth about this emergency session regarding Palestine as well. But Sheharyar, when we look at the ongoing situation, and as we are entering the 1-year completion of this ongoing conflict in Gaza, now the conflict has clearly spilled over to the neighboring countries as well, and with, of course, Lebanese group like Hezbollah attacking Israel, especially north of Israel. How do you think this is going to be impacting the larger region?
So Maryam, this is again like an interesting discussion. We've had various programs in which we have discussed the ongoing situation. In the last discussion that we had, the peace plan was on the table, and at that time the US was basically saying that this is the last time the peace plan would be, there will be a chance for all parties to basically come to a conclusion.
Right.
And at that time I basically told you very clearly that this peace plan will not be working because there is no intention on the Israeli side to have any sort of like settlement in regards to this situation. Now, moving forward from that plan, in the last 1 or 2 days, the Israeli war cabinet headed by Netanyahu has basically included more objectives into the war plan as well. And the latest objective is to basically make northern Israel secure. So there are people who they basically say have been displaced because of Hezbollah's bombing. They want to bring them back to the north. And what does that mean? That basically means expanding.
That is another point that Netanyahu has basically included to the initial.
So he keeps on changing the goalpost consistently. And now including these new objectives will further complicate the situation, further complicate the peace deal. And what Netanyahu is not realizing is that Hezbollah is like much stronger as compared to the resistance forces in Gaza. They are very better armed, they have better technology, and they are backed by various partners as well in the region. And expanding the war to Lebanon would be the next step that Netanyahu and his war cabinet basically needs to further consolidify their rule in the present scheme of things.
Right.
Another, I also want to like mention that we also like keep on saying that Netanyahu is doing this to further expand his control, or like he wants to further take more time to rule, because if the war ends then obviously Netanyahu's political career is also over. There's a very recent survey that was conducted 3 or 4 days ago in Israel, and he and his like war plan, including his war cabinet, had an approval rating of over 90% in Israel. So most of the Israelis are supporting Netanyahu and his war objectives. So we have to keep that in mind, that isolating one person is not the right strategy. I think now the whole population is behind it. They're supporting whatever is like happening.
Right. Of course, that is very important. But at the same time, Mr. Taimur, when we look at the situation on ground, of course, UNICEF and WHO have called for humanitarian pauses for, of course, polio vaccination as well. So, how do you evaluate the current situation, especially when we talk about the health sector and continuous attacks on humanitarian workers in Gaza?
Well, I think that September and October are very crucial months for the Israeli government, because whatever they are doing, they have the silent backing of the US government. And why I'm saying that these 2 months are very crucial, because the US elections are approaching in November, and both the parties have shown their full support for the present regime in Israel. And I think that whether it is the humanitarian aid or health or anything, the Israelis are not going to stop, because they also know that for all their consolidation of power in Gaza and to push out the Palestinians out of Gaza, for them these 2 months are going to be very, very important, because in these 2 months there is less likelihood that US would act. And as we know that
because of the upcoming elections,
because they have to get the Jewish votes, they have to get the Jewish funding, and both parties in US are looking at the elections right now, and for them their domestic politics is much more important than what is happening in Gaza. And Israel is taking full liberty of that thing. But after November, I'm sure that whosoever will win the elections, any kind of peace deal or anything which is going to happen in this conflict is going to happen after the new government would come in US. Till then, I don't think that
Mr.
they are going to
Nadir,
support.
this is not a very positive outlook that our panelists are portraying. But at the same time, with over 2% of Gaza's population already been killed, how do you see its impact on the social fabric not only in Gaza, West Bank, but on the overall region as well. And also tell us about the education system. And of course, when we look at the future of children, where of course 90% of schools have been damaged in this conflict so far.
A few days before, the result of 12th class, which is the end of the school study in our system, was mentioned by our education ministry. Gaza student was not attending that exams because they are under attack. There is no schools at all working. The schools become a safe zone for Palestinians to use it, and it is attacked even with a safe zone. Even the UNRWA schools, which is according to international law, this safe zone not allowed by the international law to be attacked during the war, because international institutes. Most of the people are living in tents, without electricity, without clean water, without food resources. Israel is not allowed the money of food supply and humanitarian supply.
83% has been blocked.
Yes, they are blocked on the borders of Egypt. Sometimes they allowed some of the humanitarian aid to come through Jordan, to West Bank, to Gaza. But the Israeli settlers, most of the time, looting and destroy that humanitarian aid to Gaza. Because as I told you before, I don't like to repeat my word, but this is actually what is happening on the ground. Israel's plan is to make people of Gaza starving to death, to have one of two solutions: stay in Gaza and die, or leave in Gaza and become refugees again for the second time in their lives since 1948 until now. This is the Israeli plan.
Right.
They want their dream since before 1948 until now. It was their dream. According to their lies, that Palestine, it is a land without people, for people, without land.
Right.
This is their plan. So again, they want to make displace all the Palestinians out of Gaza out of Gaza. Later on, they will displace all the Palestinians out of West Bank to control the historical land of Palestine.
That's what I want to ask you about. That Israelis, of course, settler violence has also escalated in the recent past as well. So how do you see this settler violence in the broader Israel's strategy?
First of all, Israeli settlements, according to international law, it is illegal. So all the action of settlers, according to that, it is illegal. I like to bring to the table one thing. I watch something and I like to share this fact. You remember my brother Taimur speak about the American elections. So I like to bring that on the table, if you don't mind. In the first period when was Mr. Trump, the President of the United States of America, he gave a promise for the Jew that he will transfer the embassy of American embassy to Jerusalem, and he will recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And he do that in the end of 2017. The story is that two persons actually was behind that things, because they support his election campaign by $25 million. According to that, he recognized Jerusalem as a capital of Israel, and he's shifting the embassy of the United States of America embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Who paid that money? Maryam Edelson and Sheldon Edelson, who died few months before. Right now, his wife working hard to make him recognize West Bank as part of Israel, like he do before in 2018 for Julan, which is part of Syrian land, and he recognized it as part of Israel. Right now, she is ready to pay for him $100 million to support his election campaign, to give West Bank for Israelis to come part of the land of Israel. So this is what is happening right now on the ground. So we are need to work wisely and strongly as Muslim Ummah, as a human beings who are loving peace and stability in the world, to destroy all these plans by following the international law in all the details. Settlements are not illegal. occupation is not legal, warring against Gaza is not legal. Don't giving the Palestinian people their rights by getting their independence and getting their own independent states with Jerusalem as capital, continue that is illegal. So we need to take real and strong things on the ground. We need to have a strong procedure on the ground to do that, shown on the ground very soon before the time is end. First of all, I like to explain that tomorrow, as I mentioned before, United Nations General Assembly going to be start. This is opportunity to change the game by what is ruling by United States of America and other Western countries by following the right, following the law. This opportunity, we don't like to miss it, for the support of all humanity, for our procedure, for our plan as a Palestinians. The President of Palestine speech in the United Nations need to be procedure on the ground to end the occupation. This is what our request from all the human beings, not only from Muslim Ummah.
Of course. And Sheharyar, when we talk about, like you earlier alluded to as well, about the failed ceasefire efforts so far. So since the conflict is now spilling over and escalating each day into the wider region, how do you see the role of regional powers like Egypt, Qatar in the coming days?
So Maryam, Egypt and Qatar are still coordinating with the US on reaching some sort of like agreement, but obviously the main sticking point, the Philadelphia corridor, Israel is very adamant on keeping control of that. And I personally think that Israel knows that this would be a non-starter for the other side to accept. Other than that, when we talk about the spilling over of conflict into the region, that goes into the favor of Israel and the Netanyahu-led war cabinet, because this gives them time. And as Khalid Saab has mentioned, that this is an opportunity for them to basically expand their war objectives as much as they can until the US elections are happening, because till then I don't think the US would want to change the stalemate on ground or like come up with any drastic policy measures. Other than that, a very recent incident like 1 or 2 days ago, which was quite alarming in my analysis, would be the role that Yemen and the Houthis are playing. And they now have sophisticated technology, and they basically launched a very hypersonic long-range ballistic missile, which was not detected by the Israeli air defense system. And if this technology that the Houthis have acquired, if they are able to basically launch a devastating blow to the Israeli capital or their war machinery, then this conflict would erupt, and it would like engulf the whole Middle East. Now I don't like understand whether Israel actually wants that, and they're not like calculating the calculus that this impact.
Also, Sheharyar, when we look at the economic aspects of this war, do you think in the long term this is going to be sustainable for Israel, keeping in mind the economic losses it is, of course, facing every day?
Unfortunately, the calculus with which Israel is operating, look at the amount of military aid that Israel has gotten from the US and its counterparts or other stakeholders like the UK and some other European countries as well. They're backing on their linkages within these economies, that even after this like war eventually ends, they would be able to rebuild or reignite their economy again from the military or economic aid backing that they get without question actually from the Congress and other bodies.
But Sheharyar, the recent reports show that Israel's military costs are going to be surpassing over $5 billion. So in the light of all these figures in recent reports, is it still sustainable for Israel?
I think it's over $50 billion. And it is going to increase.
Yeah, it's $55 billion.
55.
Yeah.
So, Maryam, the question basically arises that if the Congress or the US government is bypassing all legislations, because there are like a lot of like checks and balances when it comes to giving aid in terms of like military to various countries. So if they're like bypassing the Congress and the president is signing a presidential order into giving all of this aid, then you and I don't have any incentive to basically even believe that this would stop. even after the US elections, then obviously there is a reset and we can assume that there would be some sort of like policy changes on ground. But till like the elections, at least like till December or January next year, I basically see this situation getting worse, and I would also expect some sort of like regional escalation as well.
Mr. Khalid, when we look at the situation, UN has recently called for, of course, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from West Bank. How do you think that International Court of Justice's advisory opinion plays into the larger context, and how can international community at this point in time put more pressure on Netanyahu's government?
Yeah, unfortunately, the decision of and the advisory note of the International Court of Justice has not been accepted by many of the European and powers, including US and Israel. UN, yes, UN is trying to play a role, but at the same time, till the time China, Russia and other major countries, including some Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, they will not put pressure inside one sitting inside the Security Council or within the UN, the things will not improve. And
is there going to be a scenario where there is possibility of enforcement of International Court of Justice's, of course, advisory opinion? And if possible, how would this conflict look like?
No, there is no possibility that the International Court of Justice enforcement would happen. But yes, as we know that the annual UN conclave is coming up, and even our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is also going over there. So we hope that within this international, their annual gathering of the world leaders, some sense will prevail in UN, and they will pass some strong statements against Israel. But as I said, nothing is going to happen till the time the US would play a conclusive role in that. And as compared to...
Right, and when you talk about, of course, a US role in all this, Arab American communities are protesting regarding US foreign policy towards the Middle East. Do you think this is going to be impacting domestic politics and upcoming elections? And do you foresee any changes in foreign policy?
Initially, President Joe Biden was taking a lot of interest in the Israeli conflict, and because he was running for the elections. That was why we saw that a peace deal came on the table. But then we also saw the failing of that peace deal, because after President Joe Biden, he withdrew from the election campaign. He lost all his interest in the conflict. And Kamala Harris is currently not focusing on the policies of Joe Biden, and she is trying to pursue her own agenda and her own policy. And we had seen in the recent debate with Donald Trump that she has distanced herself from Joe Biden's policy. So I don't see that US will be playing any kind of role, because currently President Joe Biden is on a dormant role, and although he's sending his Secretary of State to various countries, but we have seen the recent visit of Secretary of State to Qatar, Egypt and many other countries was just a lip service, and basically nothing concrete happened. As I said before, that for Israel, these 2 months are very, very important, because they are going to consolidate their power. They are going to put more pressure on Palestinians to move out of Gaza. They are going to have more bombing of Gaza, because they know that neither the Security Council is going to act, nor the Americans are going to act. But I see here a greater role of China over here, because we have seen that in few months back, China was the only country which had brought together all the Palestinian factions together, and so that whenever a ceasefire agreement happens, so it should be the voice of all the Palestinian factions, and the ceasefire agreement should later not be broken by any faction. So I see that in coming days, China and Russia will be playing a greater role. China, of course, will be playing a greater role directly, and Russia indirectly, because Russia is also under sanctions because of the Ukraine war. But China's role is expanding. China will be playing a greater role, as we know that in October, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's head of the government COG meeting happening in Pakistan, and we hope that China will be putting on more pressure on the world leaders in UN on 24th and 25th of September, once the leaders would meet in UN.
Right, but Mr. Nadir, when we look at the ongoing situation at this point in time, several Muslim countries and also European countries as well have called for implementation of a two-state solution. In your opinion, how practical is this solution at this point in time, with of course increasing Israeli settlements, and how do you foresee these calls for two-state solution in the coming days?
As a Palestinian leadership, since we go to Madrid peace campaign, we're speaking about two-state solutions. After that, we go to Oslo Agreement in 1993. We speak about two-state solutions as Palestinian leadership. But the only part is refusing the two-state solution is the Israelis, because they have, believe that it is a promised land for them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is Palestine for them. I don't know from where they get that idea. Other things, they are getting full support from the Americans, because the Americans actually only wasting times. They speak about negotiation for 30 years, and we negotiate and we go in circles. We never reach to the real points. The Americans support blindly the Israelis, so according to that, they waste any opportunity was on the road to getting peaceful solution for the conflict and getting two-state solutions. Still, two-state solution actually starts since 1938, not from now. When Israel getting establishing in our homeland in 1948, that was according to 181 resolution, which is make two states on the land of Palestine, 56% for the Israelis, 44% for the Palestinians, and this giving the birth for two-state solutions. But the Israelis getting their own state, and they occupied extra land by getting 78% of the Palestinian territories, and leave 22 part, which is West Bank, include East Jerusalem under the Jordanian control, and Gaza Strip under the Egyptian control. From there until now, we are not reaching for any solutions, because the Americans again and again was not serious in getting a solution, even for two-state solution, because they believe that keep Israel stronger than any country in the region is the most important for them. Be sure that the support of Zionists in the elections for their presidents is more important getting a solution in Palestine. So as long as the Americans deal in this way, we will reach to no way. So according to that, we need to have a reform for the international system, a reform for United Nations, to give the United Nations more power to activate the resolution, the international law, to be progress on the ground. I think this is a vision not only for us as a Palestinian, but this is a vision of China, Russia, and many other, and Pakistan, and many other Arabs and Muslim Ummah countries, and many of the humanity. But the only problem is the Americans and the American veto, which destroy any opportunity for two-state solution, for reform the United Nations, and for getting justice on the ground and activate the international organization.
Right. And Sheharyar, when we look at recent Netanyahu's statement, he's already announcing post-war plans. So, and UAE is one of the countries that has clearly stated that, of course, it will not support Israel's post-war plan for Gaza without the establishment of a two-state solution and implementation of two-state solution. Do you think that other Arab countries are going to be joining UAE, and how does the future look like when we talk about the day after?
So Maryam, like other than the GCC countries, the Middle Eastern countries, now a lot of European countries are also backing this two-state solution, which has always been, I don't understand why certain countries were not backing it. But now other very prominent countries in the European Union like Spain, Slovenia, Norway, and others as well are backing the two-state solution. They're also like, negotiating, or I would like say lobbying or advocating for the day after and how the situation would be. On the other hand, one other development that I noticed very recently, which was again very alarming, was the amount of soldiers that Israel has on ground, and now they're like even recruiting African migrants who are in Israel seeking asylum of some sort. And now the Israeli government, and this is coming from their newspaper, this news that like came out 2 days ago. It's not from any international publication, but like Israel's own publication, that African migrants are being asked to enlist in the Israeli Defense Forces and basically join the war against in Gaza, and in return they would get permanent residence or like a path to citizenship in Israel. So this also like points towards the fact that on ground, when it comes to manpower, I think like Israel is like losing, and they're like
yeah, that's why I asked you earlier
recruits.
that how sustainable is this war going to be for Israel. But do you think that other Arab countries are going to be, of course, now voicing strongly their opinion regarding implementation of Oslo Accords or two-state solution?
Maryam, they already have been, not even like since the last one year, but this has been a consistent stalemate for the last like 30 or 40 years, as long as I can remember. Every country has been supporting, the statehood of Palestine. They have been supporting all of the peace accords or UN resolutions that are there lining in, I don't know, hundreds. Again, the burden or the onus of how things will go forward would unfortunately lie with the US, which has a significant economic and political clout over the Israelis and the other way around as well.
Right.
And obviously we have to take the regional stakeholders on board and develop a consensus. I also personally believe that the European Union has a very strong role, which I think they're not like playing, and I see a lot of like European countries divided, and the new opinion is being formed, and I agree with the Deputy Ambassador that the overhaul of international various platforms like the UN and various other regional groupings that are like fast emerging, like the SCO. When we talk about the permanent member status of the UN, the overhauling of like the whole UN architecture, there's like something on the table, and that will be something that needs to be discussed.
Right. And Mr. Khalid, when we talk about these recent calls for, of course, two-state solutions, of course, this has been on the picture for quite some time. But how do you think this is going to be impacting the larger peace process and ongoing ceasefire efforts?
Currently, as I say, that this two-state solution and all these things, they all depend on that how the major stakeholders see to it. Although right now they are talking about two-state solution, but the immediate thing is to have a ceasefire. The two-state solution can be implemented maybe after the ceasefire happens, but we all have to see that how the things are going to progress, because within Israel also the government is very, very fragile and weak. Will their own legislatures will agree to that? No, they will not agree to that. What is going to be the reaction of Egypt? What is going to be the reaction of the other Middle Eastern power? Because it's a very blanket thing. Right now, I think it is premature if we say that a two-state solution can be a solution. Right now, the war has to stop. Right now, people have to go back to their settlements. Right now, they have to rebuild the area. The students have to go back to their schools. All these immediate things need to be done first, and then any other solution or any other option can be thought of.
Right, and Mr. Nadir, when we look at the recent statements, like I earlier discussed as well, that Netanyahu has announced and his post-war plan promises unparalleled prosperity for Gaza. How realistic is this plan?
I will go back a little bit back to 30 years before, when we go for Madrid peace conference. The Prime Minister at that time was Sheharyar for Israelis, and he said that he's going to negotiate with the Palestinians for 20 years without giving them anything. We are in the start of the peace process more than 30 years right now, and we get nothing until now. For the Israelis leaders, one after one, when one of them starts speaking about peace with Palestinians, Ishaq Rabin, they kill him. And who kill him? Actually, they are partner with Netanyahu in the government right now, who kill their own prime minister, are right now joining the government as ministers and part of the government. So what we are waiting, what is Netanyahu? He is not accepting two-state solutions, and he will not accept to continue the peace process. Even right now, you asked before about the financial and economical Israeli situation, almost destroyed right now, because most of the hot money going out of Israeli
Right, because
territories.
credit agencies have also downgraded Israel's rating for the first time in his history.
Companies of high tech run away out of Israelis areas. The people who living in the north are right now shifting to the middle of Tel Aviv, and the people who are in the south since 7th of October, they didn't return to the settlements in the south. So all the Israelis people right now live in the middle of the middle area, which is in Tel Aviv. And Tel Aviv, a few days before, as my brother mentioned, attacked by hypersonic ballistic rockets from Yemen to there. So no one is safe. So the only solution is peace, but Netanyahu is not ready to peace, because peace for him means that he will lost his position as a prime minister, and he will facing the Israeli court for 4 cases of corruptions, 4 files of corruptions, and he will go to jail, and he will be questioned by his own people about the failure of his army, his security departments in 7th of October, and facing all this tragedy for about 1 year. So Netanyahu is not ready to peace, and the only solution to win the war for Netanyahu is displace Palestinian people out of Gaza and start the same scenario in West Bank, to have control of all the historical land of Palestine, to become only one-state solution, which is Israeli state, no Palestinian state. This is the Netanyahu propaganda, this is Netanyahu ideas, this is Netanyahu scenario, and the only scenario acceptable for him. Right. So we are waiting for international community, for international organizations to become more wise and more strongly to go getting back to peace process, real peace process, two-state solutions, getting each one his rights according to international law and following the international resolutions.
Right.
One of the first steps needs to be taken again and again is freezing or the Israelis membership in the United Nations, because she is joining the membership of United Nations under 2 conditions according to resolution 273, which is accept and follow 181 resolution and 194 resolution, which speak about right of return Palestinian refugees, and she does not accept and obey that, and she didn't obey and respect any international resolution. Even the International Court of Justice decides that the Israeli occupation for Palestinian territories is illegal and this need to be end, and they refuse that.
Right.
According to that, Israel need to be freeze their membership from United Nations and from all international organizations. Americans need to follow the international law and stop acting as a superpower country, can do whatever. She is not a god of the world. She is only a state like other states. That again and again we need to reform the international
Right.
society.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nadir Turk,
Thank
for
you
joining
very
us
much,
in
sister.
today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, Taimur, Akram for joining us in today's program. Of course, as the war has entered into its 11th month, the international community must not only rely on words of condemnation, but there is need for concrete and meaningful steps to, of course, stop Israel's aggression on Gaza and, of course, surrounding areas. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.